get started. And thank you for your patience. So let me share the right screen. Can you all see my screen? All good?
Now we are live, yeah.
Yeah, we are live and you can see my screen. You can see my the slide.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Roger. All right, everyone, welcome to this new 9x Live workshop. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about enrichment. And enrichment, with two tools that we use internally at 9x, namely Attio as CRM and Clay as enrichment platform. For those of you who don't know us yet, so quick introduction, we are 9x, go9x.com. We are building your one-stop shop to learn AI and automation. We believe that AI skills and automation skills are going to be the most important skills to learn in the next decade, starting right now. And we're on a mission to deliver you those skills on a silver platter. We do that via workshops, via an asynchronous course, all the way down to custom cohort programs for companies. Before we start, a bit of advertising. There's another workshop next week already, where we will be joined with Flo Crivello, the CEO of Lindy. Lindy is one of my favorite automation platforms at the moment, and we're going to be talking about AI agents. Flo will come with examples of AI agents that he uses internally at Lindy. I will showcase some of our own AI agents that help us, for instance, automatically answer YouTube comments, process emails, and so on and so forth. To register, Dima is going to drop the link in the Zoom chat right now. So make sure to register. It's going to be a good session if you want to discover how to build AI agents. And yeah, Flo is one really of the top people in the space and building a really cutting edge platform with Lindy. Second advertisement, the AI and Automation Master course. So this is the course that we sell to individuals and gives you basically everything you need to know to learn to build professional grade automations with and without AI. There's more than 100 hours of content. This is the course that we constantly improve and tweak. We bring new topics, so there will be, everybody's talking about MCP at the moment. There will be a lesson on MCP soon in the course. And gives you also lifetime access to all the workshops that we do like these. This one is free. We have also some paid workshops that we do, and also gives you access to our Slack community. And that's it for the advertising already. So today we're going to talk about Attio, Clay, and the most important use case you can build with these two, which is enrichment. And I'm going to show you not one, but two setups, because between the time where we did this workshop for the first time and now, we actually made several changes. And I thought it could be interesting to see why we made those changes, what were the problems that we tried to solve with these changes, and maybe also gives you a little bit of an idea on how to think about enrichment in general. So, starting with enrichment. Your CRM is as good as your data. So if you can have the best CRM in the world, if the data in there is outdated, you're in trouble. And keeping your data up to date and accurate is usually very challenging. The top three challenges being first, data coverage. So getting good data quality on your leads, on your customers. Second, it's speed, because the world is changing fast. The small startup from a year ago may have raised a big round and now is ripe for getting your services or your products. So it's important that you get your data as fast as possible to respond as soon as possible when there's the right signal. Third challenge, or historically, updating CRM data was a manual effort. I still remember the days where we had to buy lead lists to providers and upload them via CSV. And updating the lead list was how you prepare your outreach. And first purchase some data, and then you upload the CSV, and then people are ready to reach out. And actually, a month or 2 months later, the data is already outdated for some of those records. So it historically was a manual effort. Now we can automate most of that. The key is to know how to do it. And yeah, with the setup we're going to show you today, you have a good idea of what the future looks like, and hopefully some actionable insights for how you can implement it for your CRM, for your data, and for your go-to-market strategy. So the solution is to these issues is to automatically enrich CRM records. So magically, we have contacts with no information in our CRM, and then magically, we got the email. Magically, we have the phone. We know about their job title, their seniority, etc. And to do that, you need to build an enricher. You need to connect your CRM to an enricher. So you have your CRM on one side, you have an enricher on the other side, and the CRM is going to have an enrichment request. I need more information about this contact, about this company. And the enricher is going to respond back with enrichment data. This person is C-level. You should reach out. And our example today, or two examples today, are going to be Attio on the CRM side and Clay on the enricher side. Any questions in the chat before we dig in the demo? All good? So far, so good?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay. Then let's look at the current setup. And it's the riskiest part of the workshop because we made changes today. So, demo time. All right, so this is YouTube. This is not relevant. And we'll start from our Attio instance. I'll zoom in a little bit. Maybe a few words about our current setup. Our current setup enriches inbound leads and inbound leads for us. So we sell courses, we sell trainings, we sell workshops. And so we have a different, we create different types of content pieces in order to attract leads. And at a high level, we have 5 routes. So we have inbounds. It's the first list where people book a call with us on our website. We have a second list in Attio for people enrolling in our courses. We have a free course on our website. So whenever somebody enrolls to a free course, it's going to be an interesting lead because they want to learn. We have events like this one. You landed in this list by signing up to this workshop. We have tutorials on our website as well, which are like recipes, step-by-step instructions on how to implement a certain use case. We'll share the one with Clay and Attio during this workshop. Whenever you get the first tutorial, you land in this list. And there's also the possibility on our website to request workshops. And when you do, you land in this list. No matter which list you are landing in, what happens next is we trigger the enrichment. And the enrichment, I'm going to trigger it manually now on our friend Rupert, who's the founder of Docs Automator, which is a platform you should check if you want to automate your document generation process. And let's say Rupert has just landed in one of these lists, so it can be any of those. And typical situation, everything I know about Rupert is his email address. And that's a bit light. So the goal is to find as much information as possible about Rupert, his job title, the company, his LinkedIn profile, so we can enrich, categorize him, and also information on the company. And so for this, I'm going to trigger it manually and pray that everything works as expected. And the first step, and whenever there's an inbound lead, it is happening automatically. The first step is going to be that workflow run that I skipped. So if I go in workflows, here we have, so the one I just triggered is a manual. is this one, manually send person to Clay enrichment. And it just does one thing. It grabs the person. So here in this case, it's a record command. If you're not familiar with record commands on Attio, it's just basically saying this gives the possibility to trigger the workflow from that particular record, so from a person in this case. And we send an HTTP request. So we are calling a service via API. Which service are we calling? We're calling Clay for enrichment. And so, thank God, it works. Beautiful. Good job, Roger. What happened next is our friend Rupert got into this flow here. So the first step and what we do in this step, I can't show you this one because there's information about the webhook, like how it's configured, but basically we're sending a bunch of data and we will show it in the tutorial. There's a bunch of data that we send to Clay. And in the first step, we receive it. So everything you see in red is the information that we send. So what do we send? We send the record ID of the person. So we are going to be able, at the end of the process, to update that record ID, to update that person with the data that we received. So far, so good. What else do we send? We send any information actually that could help us identify this person. So I have some empty fields here. That's normal because the LinkedIn profile, for instance, I do not have, but I want to look for it. But in some cases, Attio may have it available, and that's going to make the search more easier. So we have the full name, we have the job title sometimes, we have the email. Usually we're going to have the full name and the email. So far, so good. If the LinkedIn profile, the Twitter account are available, I'm going to add these because it makes the identification of the person much easier. We're going to extract the domain of the email. And if there is a company, we're going to also pass that. Why? Because we are going to then, after enriching the person, we're going to look for information about the company. So this is what we pass. Then there's a number of, and this is everything that is in yellow, a number of operations we do in Clay in order to organize our enrichment flow. So we are here figuring out whether it's a work or email domain. That's going to be important. If I look at edit column, here we're providing the email in question. I want to figure out whether it's a work email or a private one. We're going to use that information afterwards. Then comes, that's this one, Roger? Yeah. That's the one, the web server. Then comes the part where, at this point in time, I do not have the company. I do not have the LinkedIn profile of Rupert. So I need to identify that person's LinkedIn profile. And for this, we're going to use one of the most powerful modules in Clay, Clayagent. So Clayagent is an AI agent with web browsing capabilities. So it's a little agent that can browse the web and look for the right information. And so we have a long set of instructions, basically saying, here are the information I have about this person. This is what I know about this person. And you are going to find the LinkedIn URL of that person. That's your only job. Look for it and return it. We explain a little bit what's the pattern of the LinkedIn profile. We have steps for the search. So you need to look for that person in question, that name, look for that email address, look at the domain of the company. Maybe you can match the way you would do a search if you are only given those information. So if I have Rupert at Doxotomator, even if I don't have the full name, well, I guess I'm looking for a Rupert who works in this company. So the domain of the company is going to be very helpful in that case to just narrow down to that one person. If I only have Rupert, it's going to be more challenging. We do Google search. We have several iterations and several attempts. So there's the happy flow, and then there's in some cases where the search does not return, or the initial search does not return the result that I want. We're going to then have different steps. So if that doesn't work, do this. If that doesn't work, then search this. Like we have different iterations that we've applied. Some reminders at the end, and as output, we want only one property, the LinkedIn URL clean. Okay, so that's probably the most important part of the enrichment that you run, and this is the prompt, the part that you need to be iterating on if you don't have good results. So miracle, it worked, and it returned this LinkedIn address, which is the LinkedIn URL of Rupert. And then from that, we can use one module called enrich person that takes this LinkedIn URL as parameter, can take an email as fallback, but is less successful in that case. So that's why we insist on getting the LinkedIn URL. That's sort of like, that's your professional identity. And enrich. And what does that step do? It's going to return all these data points about the person. We need to return all these data points about the person, the country, the headlines, like we have the company, we have the job title, we also have the past experiences. So there's a goldmine of information there as a starting point. Right now we're just keeping the bare minimum. On the job title, I want the company, but there's a lot more to explore there. You can see what the person studied also. And then everything that follows afterwards is about extracting. So based on what you have here, you basically can add as a column the properties you are interested in. We're going to paste these. So we paste the company, the LinkedIn profile. I think it's the LinkedIn profile of the company, the location, country, the domain of the company, just to confirm. This is the title. And then in these last steps, this is more something that we do on top and that you can do all at once with in one flow in one Clay table, is enriching or determining the different categories. So typically you would assign a persona to a lead. Here, he's the CEO of his company. What we have on top is we have also, but these are predefined categories. So this is not how do we come up with the CEO, founders, and C-levels and management. These are categories that we define internally. So if we look at one prompt, one of these prompts to define, to determine these values, all you need to do there. So this is a single select, and we have our different. This is how we split the world right now. We have 3 levels, more, let's say, founders and C-levels. We have like head offs, and then we have a mix of individual contributors. Okay. I think someone is still muted here. Yeah, perfect. So to get to these categorizations, we have, once again, we have a prompt, which is going to be, I think, yeah, persona attribution. So this one prompt, and here we use ChatGPT, is taking the job title, taking the summary of the bio of the person. We want to output the persona, the type, the function, and the score. So we're categorizing the lead and we are scoring it as well. So this is the first input, and then the context for the task, the system prompt. These are like the core instructions. Your job is to determine the best matching persona for the contact we give you. Here's the list of personas. For each persona, you will find their type, their function, some examples of corresponding job titles. And here we have the whole list. So a CPO is typically founders and C-levels. Function is product and tech, and example job titles matching this persona: a CPO, chief product officer, founder, and CPO. The whole list there. Additional instructions on the score. So we ask it to output a score between 0 and 100. And additional instructions on how to output so that we match. This is important because we want to make sure that this matches the values in our single select. So sometimes it would output CEO, but we don't have CEO, we have the CEO. Maybe you should change the naming convention, but you will still have this problem if you have like single selects, that you need to ensure that out of all the things your LM can output in that categorization, it is only allowed to output your accepted values. It's important to do it here in Clay because then the next step is going to be we paste it back in Attio. All right. And once we've done that, and you can imagine having like you select the data points that you want to push. The last step is going to be I want to now push that data back, update the person record that we had initially back in Attio. And so for this, we have, you'll change the webhook, Rouge, sorry. We make a post request to a make scenario, and we push those properties. So we basically create what is called a JSON, which is a list of properties, and everything we found, we are going to push there. Which brings me to the simple scenario Rouge built, which run, I'm not sure this is the last run. Is it the last run? This one? Okay. Is it this one? Or is it the, do we have the enrichment in the meantime?
It definitely ran because the notification was sent. I
Is it
see.
this one?
I think it's the execution at 5:15, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, something's
Yes,
wrong with the time. Is it this one?
5:15. The thing is that your your time looks different, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's let's see. So
Mm,
that's not
Not
this
this
one.
one. Must be the last one then.
Let's try the last one.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So from Clay, we send this data to Make. And Make, in the setup I'm going to show you in the second half of the workshop and what we have in the tutorial, this is all handled in Attio workflows. Now, there's two limitations with the Attio workflows. First, they tend to be expensive. And very quickly, we started having a lot of operations for something that is very recurring and like very important that we cannot turn off. That would cost much less to execute there. So that's one of the decisions and one of the changes compared to the tutorial we're going to show you afterwards is one optimization is if you run permanent enrichment and you have a lot of leads, you're going to start to look at the invoice at the end of the month. You're going to start at trying to optimize that. The second thing is there were some actions that required us to call different systems, and maybe trigger Clay mid workflow, like what we do here. And that's just more convenient to do it inside Make. And then the third reason is that Roger can build pretty much anything in Make, so it was easy to get to delegate. So what do we do here? In the first step, we get the person in Attio. We're using what? Using the record idea that we had that we sent in the first place. So you want to make sure you get the exact person that started the enrichment flow. Then here we do a bunch of things here. Can you explain a little bit, Rose, why we're doing that? Why are we not updating directly the person with this action? What are the things that you needed to do in this area?
Mm-hmm. One of the first things that I needed to do was investigating a little bit deeper into the Attio API because I found out that that was probably the best way of updating the user that we were trying to update. So for that, we have this JSON module here, which for now is expecting the fields that we are passing, but in the future, we will also probably extend and we will store way more fields inside this JSON because we plan on collecting more data about the users. But for now, for this migration of the workflow that we did from Attio to Make, I brought these fields, which are type, persona, function. Depending on the data type that you have in Attio, you might have to structure this JSON in one way or another. For example, there are fields that are complex or fields like mails in Attio that can have more than one mail. One person can have more than one mail. So that you have to structure as an array, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, basically in the JSON module, we structure the body of the HTTP call or the API call that we do afterwards to update the person.
Okay, very cool. So that's one thing. The Attio API is quite powerful, but yeah, in some cases. So if there were two email addresses on Rupert's profile account, and we don't do this type of things, and we just find one email from Clay, or like our enrichment flow says Rupert has one email, then we will override the other one that is in the stored in Attio. So there's some little things that you need to do that yeah, can make things a little bit more complicated sometimes, but that is the role of this part here. Once we do this, basically what happens to Rupert? I look for him. Oh, we have him here. So once we are at this step, we already have those informations. We have the persona, like basically everything we found. There's no phone number for return from Clay. There are some services you can connect to if you want to get the phone number of people, if that is your way of contacting leads. And then in the same workflow, we trigger the enrichment, the company enrichment. And so there are two cases. You remember at the beginning, we are sharing or pushing the Attio company record ID. So what this means is for a contact that is already linked to a company in Attio, we are going to go in this route and say, okay, there's an existing company, let's look it up and let's see if it's already enriched. Let's not do anything, but if it is not enriched yet, let's enrich that one. The other option, which happens often, especially if you have somebody with a Gmail address, is going to be, well, we found the company you work in, Fondia. That company doesn't exist. We create it in Attio, and we send it to a Clay table for enrichment. Okay, so that's for these, and the end of the flow. So maybe it's not the optimal right now, but why are we waiting? So we send the company to enrichment, whether it's an existing one or one created, and why are we then sleeping for 5 minutes twice?
Yeah, exactly. Here, the flow kind of divides because we are enriching persons and companies. So, from one side in Clay, as we're doing this call and we are enriching the company, that flow continues. And at the end of the company enrichment, we trigger another scenario that populates the new data into the company record. Uh, to send this notification, exactly, it's this flow. And to send the notification that was at the end of the previous scenario, we might be interested in adding some information on the Slack notification about the company. For example, we enrich this person that belongs to this company, and this company has, for example, X number of employees. So this last part of the message comes from the company enrichment, not from the person enrichment. So for that, we wait this time, and we wait basically for the data to be enriched for the company to then build the final message.
Okay.
Would be like the original thing would be to just receive an answer back from Clay when the company is enriched. But for now, for this flow, we just set an average wait time of like, I think the enrichment took like 5 minutes usually. So I added 7.5 minutes because it's also not time sensitive.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So we send the company to enrichment, and at that time we still need that information. We wait a bit of time here in this case, and at the end we are sharing, like generating this notification that you see right here. Why is it important to have a channel logging the enrichment jobs? Well, first of all, because it gives you real time the account of how good your enrichment process is. And so that's where you can find stuff like this, for instance. So we enriched a company, we didn't find the vertical, and also we didn't find the name. And so there's your enrichment as you are going to build it and solve different issues step by step is going to get better, but the only way to know where you have errors is to really have a log. So it's observability of what's happening in your enrichment flow. And so for this, I would recommend having a channel like this one, which it's not a channel that you would look at every day, and that's necessarily like the most important for your business. It's really the one where you want to audit that the enrichment process is functioning and that we find the data points. Okay, we send the company to this Clay table here. So that's the second part. For Docs Automator, so same process. We send the Attio record ID of the company. We have the domain, we have the name of the company. That's pretty much all we got. We search for the LinkedIn profile of the company. Same logic here. We use it to enrich the company. So we use it to find we found Docs Automator, the company, and then from there we can extract the data points that we're interested in. And there, same logic. So Docs Automator is a tool to help you generate documents, like a no-code tool that you plug on top of Airtable, among other. So this is B2B SaaS. That's one categorization we can do. Last step, we push it back for make scenario to update the company, and that's the flow here. So this is webhook. It creates or update the company, and then it's going to create a final Slack message. This webhook here is for Clay so this is what Clay received that confirms that the enrichment was correct. So you can see 201, the enrichment was correct. Why 201? Just out of curiosity. Why not 200?
No special meaning. I just was checking what were
It's a great number, or?
the other codes before we did this migration to make.
Okay.
I didn't want to have the same code for both. So now I can differentiate between your workflow before and my workflow now. Which one is it?
Okay, cool. And so end to end, what do we end up with inside Attio? We also have the company properties that are enriched. Yeah, that's pretty much the process. And we also have a notification informing us that Docs Automator, Verticals B2B SaaS, it's a bootstrap company, so the AR is not crazy high, but Rupert's also on his own. So yeah, the day where it goes beyond 1 million ARR, it's also good outcome for him. So that's at a high level, the current setup. I'll take some questions if there are any reactions or questions on the current setup, and then we'll go into the last part, which is showing you what you can find in the template.
So we have a couple of questions in the chat if you want to
Yeah.
look at it, Alex, or I can read them out loud. So first questions are mostly about Attio, like how scalable is it as your company grows? This was by Elon.
I think Attio is very scalable. You can have like at least up to a million record in below the enterprise plan. So already for the amount of data that you may need, let's say you have a service business or you have a B2B SaaS, but you are not Slack, you're not Salesforce, you're not Asana, you will be good to go for a long time without hitting the enterprise plan. The second thing with Attio, which eventually made us opt for it, is it is the cheapest, best made custom objects CRM that I've found in my research. Salesforce is known to be a custom object CRM. Salesforce is also known to be very difficult to work with and rather expensive. And Attio is really in the sweet spot in this next generation of CRMs that are custom objects. What does it mean? It means that besides the standard CRM objects that you will find in any CRM, deals or opportunities, depending on the platform, contacts, companies, tasks, you can define your own custom objects. And so in our case, for instance, if we decide tomorrow that a lot of our traction will come from LinkedIn posts, we could have a custom object social posts, and we could start tracking everything on the social posts that we create. If tomorrow we want to also track more things around the courses, we create like the completion of the courses, we could create specific objects for that. I'm a big fan of HubSpot and I've worked with it for a long time. You can have custom objects in a platform like HubSpot, but you have always to hit like the higher plans. Like it's always been considered like a more enterprise feature. I don't think that should be the case. Your business has its specificities, and you may not need many custom objects, but it is one. It's definitely one feature that makes it stand out. Is that it's relatively affordable and allows you to do that without breaking the bank, opening up the wallet too much. The only thing on scalability, and that's one of the reasons also why we're making that change, is on the workflows. I find the pricing on the workflows quite it's not inviting you to put all your automations inside Attio. And so if you have high volume, you can use Attio workflows for sales process automations. But if you have something that is high volume, recurring, like enrichment, and you are having a lot of leads, then I think the way is setups like this, where the Attio workflow is just doing one thing. It's calling an external service via API like Make, and you do your whole logic outside of Attio.
Perfect. You actually managed to answer another question, which was around HubSpot. Then we had another question from Elon, which was a bit of a longer one, but he is asking, I think maybe Raja, you might want to answer this. The question is, would it make sense to send the data over to Clay first for enrichment and qualification, lead scoring, before sending it to Attio instead of the other way around? And he's asking, or they're asking, because sometimes inbound submissions are spam or bots, so they're unqualified prospects.
Yes, so that's a philosophical question more than anything else. Um, if you don't send, if you don't store, so there's the whole, and that philosophical question is, what is a lead, and what should be in your CRM? I am of the school that you should store, if you are generating attention and that you have leads that come to you, that sign up on your website, I'm more of the school that you should store everything. If you don't, you will lack one information, at least for your marketing team, which is, are we attracting the right people or not? So if you attract 200 people with your marketing effort and 199 of them are not qualified, that is still information. That is still something that should live somewhere. Whether you want it in the CRM or not, whether you can have it in a preview step, that is eventually just your decision. You can filter at later stages, like creating systematically a record and then automatically scoring it as not priority, and you have it live in Attio, is not a problem unless you hit the scale limits and you eventually get to, yes, you have too many junk leads and you need to clean up your CRM. So by default, I would do that. There may be situations where you don't want to do that for obvious reasons if you have too much volume of junk leads. Hope this clarifies or this helps.
Cool. I'm not sure. Elab, if you want to go, I can also unmute you if you want to.
Thumbs up or thumbs down, or I disagree. Anything. Disagreeing is fine because eventually, like, everyone has different approach on how to set up their CRM. The key with those systems now is you're free to do what you want. I give you my take on how we do it. That makes sense in my world.
All right. And then we had one last comment / question from Jacob Sussman. Or Sussman. This seems time consuming to configure. What's the easiest way for us to hire someone or use a template to configure this more efficiently? And maybe this is a good plug for what
Yes.
we offer.
So we have a template. I'm going to walk you through that. Maybe a word of warning on. I know it's tempting to systematically, like, and especially if this is you expected to join a workshop where the setup is easy. Well, the answer is it isn't. Now, a word of caution on outsourcing entirely a project like this. A lot of the inputs in a setup like this they're not technical per se. They are internal definitions. You're putting your thinking, your opinion, your GTM strategy, your way of prioritizing leads into code, into workflows. If we take again the example of the Clay agent not the first one, but the one that is categorizing and defining personas, we have an internal definitions of as to what those personas are. And the fact that it's going to categorize things, it's relatively easy to implement. What's important is that the categorization makes sense and that eventually you get to talk in front of the right people most likely to purchase your product. So you can go to there are a number of agencies. You can look at the Clay partners. There's a lot of agencies that can set it up for you. I think that part is not necessarily the hardest. The hardest is the messaging and defining your ICP and who's your core market, who you are targeting. But a word of caution, this is not something that you can just throw money at, and it will be solved for you. And so I think it's useful also to learn how these systems are working behind the scenes. It is complicated. What the template I'm going to show you is less complicated. It's using exclusively Attio workflows, but it's maybe a good starting point to get the logic. All right, now we move to that setup in question. Dima is going to share in the chat the template that's on our website. And I'm going to walk you through at a high level, the same enrichment steps. This time purely just Attio talking to Clay. So it's Attio workflows talking to the same Clay table. And if you want to see in detail how this setup ran, there's also a link to another workshop I ran 2 weeks ago with the old setup that we had, showing exactly how that works. So this is not just a template, like in theory, this may work, and this is how things worked for us 2 weeks ago. So the logic, and is the same, the logic hasn't changed, just the tools we introduced make in the middle. We have a new lead, once again. We are first going to figure out whether that lead is already in the CRM or it's a new person. Person enrichment is triggered. We want to figure out whether the company is already in the CRM or not. If you remember the branch in make, right after we update the person. And then finally, we enrich the company. That's for an inbound, we'd say the basic logic. And then afterwards, you can apply scoring and so on. At a high level, 1, 2, 3. New lead, enrich person, enrich company. So it starts again with inbound lists, inbound lead lists in Attio. So the example here you see is tutorials. At the time when I did this workshop, we can see this person sign up for our Google Ads AI Analyst tutorial, the date of the sign up, and we don't have much more information about them. Then that first workflow from the tutorials is like when a record is added to the list, send an HTTP request to Clay. Again, this is the same pattern. As many lists as you have, this could be when a contact is created, but if you enrich all your contacts, be ready to spend some Clay credits. So I usually prioritize just on inbound lead to start with. Then we enrich the person in Clay and we send back to Attio. So that is what we covered. And there are some small changes to the like since this screenshot, small changes to the Clay table, but not so much. The only thing that we've improved since this showcase was the Clay agent and the quality of the web search. So that it returns more good results for the LinkedIn profile. Once we have the data, and that is the thing we've replaced, we were updating the person in Attio. So if we zoom on this, we received the webhook from Clay. We are going to pass the data that we receive. So we send a JSON, this is the data type we send that contains all the properties. We need to parse it so we can access those different properties. And then we look for the contact, we update the contact of the person. And then we have those two branches. If the company A exists, we're going to find it and send it to Clay enrichment for companies. If the company doesn't exist, we're going to create it first based on the information we found in Clay. And then we send an HTTP request and same outcome, we send back the company, we send to Clay and the Clay companies table. And then we have a table. Like what I hope to convey here is that there are a lot of moving pieces, but it is always the same pattern. Like, and you have the tutorial so you can follow step by step. It should be, yeah, should be within reach. So again, we have a bunch of data points that we're looking for. We're categorizing the lead. We can score the lead. Like the number of things you can do in the Clay table. The example we have right now is rather simple, but like you can have as many enrichment steps as you want. Look for the relevant information that you need for your business. And then we do an HTTP request, 202 this time, Rouge, not 201. And we had one last workflow that receives the webhook in Attio. Again, parses the JSON. We need this step so that we can read the data. Finds the company to update, updates it, messages on Slack. And that was back then, like it's very close in terms of, we had a lot of people from my start task when we did this. All right, and that's what I had for today. I'm happy to take your questions if you want to talk a bit like enrichment tactics or anything on that setup that you want me to cover again. Stop sharing for a second. Any questions?
None that I see in the chat, but you know, we can open it up if somebody wants to talk directly to Alex.
Come forward has how do you get the data into Attio to start with? Ah, yeah. So it really depends on your setup. Basically, there are different routes. For us, most of these routes, it starts with our website. I can share again and share it for 2 seconds. Okay, so did you prepare, Roger? So these are websites. And let's say, for instance, you are looking for tutorials. So you go there, and the first time, let's say, oh, I would like to generate a database schema with AI. The first time you're not going to see the whole tutorial. The first time we ask you to leave your email to sign up. When you do, we have an automation, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, so with Make, that is going to take care of creating that person in Attio and adding this person in that list right here. I can show you tutorials. This is for the demo. Okay. These are, you just signed up to, like, this is the people who signed up to today or after, yeah. So and so you landed in this list. And that's the starting point. Those different routes, you can build them. So another example, we have people signing up to our events. Here in this case, the inbound route is going to be a bit different because this case is going to be in Luma. So if I take which, yeah, you would, well, I'm already signed up to my own event. That's good news. But if you sign up to this one, we have data in Luma. And so we are using Make to bring you, we have a Make scenario that is basically bringing you to Attio. If it's the typical routes are going to be on your website, depending on the tool that you're using. So we're using Framer for our website. Whenever you sign up, you're going to have if you try to contact us, for instance, I think this is not Framer, it's going to be with cal.com. So it really depends on the service, but like at the start, as a starting point, you always have like a trigger that usually is something where you're going to leave your email. No first name, last name, no email, no enrichment. But this, I think, is table stakes. So I hope that answers. Any other questions? Are some of you building enrichment at the moment with different tools or? Elam is using N8N mostly. Yeah, so anything is also a good option. I find that for enrichment, anything is like make it's you can glue things together, you can create powerful workflows, you can basically automate steps across multiple tools, and enrichment is one of the things you can do. I do find that Clay for enrichment offers a superior experience as you are running this process. Maybe there's some things that I also share on the, well, let's get into those details and then we can have also uh, discussion on this. So some of the things that I find Clay is particularly good at, if you were to add a column, so a couple of things that are difficult to do in N10, in Make, in Lindy, Zapier, if you want to use these tools, like why are you using Clay for enrichment? One, waterfall. Very often when you're trying to enrich, so we did the enrichment we do right now doesn't make use of any API like Clearbit, Hunter, Apollo, which are like huge databases where you can look for lead information. We don't do it, we could do it. If you want to do mass emailing, for instance, you probably need to do a bit more enrichment than what we do at the moment. For us, we already have your email, we just need to know who you are. And this is an example of feature that is really optimized for enrichment, is that if the first source is not going to work out, if Clearbit for one reason doesn't return the email, then call Hunter or then call Apollo. And that you can build in N8 or Make, but these are going to be branches. And it's a little bit, you end up with Christmas tree workflows where you have 65 branches just because you want to handle like, yeah, but in this case, let's go this branch and so on. So that's one enrichment feature from and way to organize things in Clay that I find particularly neat. Second is the interface where you can see the data already there. You can retrigger mid. So if I press play and in the middle, like anything that is a step where it's thinking, you can press play, you can rerun things. You can merge fields. So here one example. What you do, you say, okay, I want my company identifier is going to be the first thing, the best case is I have the LinkedIn profile. So I want you to return this. But if you don't have it, I want the identifier to be the domain. So you can build, this is basically the alternative to conditionals in Clay or Make. I find that for enrichment, it makes your life much easier. And those cases where you're never going to have 100% of happy flow, where, oh, I find a LinkedIn profile, perfect, and then do this. No, you're going to have 20% where you don't find a LinkedIn profile. And then you need a fallback. And to engineer those fallbacks, I find that you can do all of this in Clay, but in N8N, but I find that this is much more convenient and really nailing the case for enrichment inside Clay. That's my take. Hope that makes sense also. And Marco also does it with Attio and Clay. How to connect relevance with Clay? To connect relevance with Clay, you basically do the same as what we've done with Make. We're going to there's a webhook in relevance, Roger. Yeah. So there's no direct Clay. There's not inside relevance. We go in relevance here. So relevance. So for those who don't know relevance, you can build AI agents with relevance. And here the question is, how can we trigger such agents? Can I just create one from scratch? Not really a template, but no, not a template. How do I start an agent from scratch? Let's say triggers. If we look at the triggers you have available from relevance, so you are missing here Clay. You don't have like when Clay is finished doing its job, trigger this agent. But you can use what I call like a custom webhook. which is basically the same. We send the same as what we did in Attio. So here's a pattern you can learn. It's one of the things we teach in our course on the module of our course on APIs, is that when you don't have an integration, you can just use the webhook. So here, this would be create the webhook in relevance to receive the data.
We're not seeing your screen, Alex.
Create. Sorry?
We're not seeing your screen, or at least I'm not seeing it.
Not sharing the screen? Okay, sorry. Let's do it again. Sorry. Okay, so
Now we see make. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so we're inside relevance. Sorry, like continue in Discord. We're inside relevance. You can build AI agents. So make Zapier and A10. And A10 has a bit of a mix, but these are more like automation platforms that you mostly do AI workflows. Relevance is AI agents all the way. So every unit is an AI agent. And an AI agent, just like a workflow, that has a trigger. You summon an AI agent with either it's a chat or it's going to receive some data from somewhere. So you have triggers. And here, in the case of Clay, I don't have Clay. So we could send an email. That one dirty way could be to send an email. So use Clay to send an email and then receives. But the cleanest way would be to just use the custom webhook. So you go through this step, you will get a URL, and that URL you're going to paste in that last step here, which I can't show. Oh yes, I can. No, not sure. But basically, it's like send the data to this URL, and that's the same pattern we've been using here. It's a custom URL from Make to trigger that scenario. And that's the same pattern that we've used in our tutorial. If I show it here, right here. That is the exact same thing that we do when we update, we trigger a webhook. So the only thing you need to look for in those platforms, and I think by now, absolutely all the platforms are doing that. If you don't see a native integration, if you don't see things easy, you can just configure a webhook as going to receive the data. And then sometimes a bit of technicalities that you need to understand. Do we need to parse the JSON and so on? So those are things we cover in our courses. So are things you can find also online, but that you can create your custom integration basically. So for relevance, I will do it this way. How can we trigger Clay from relevance? The same. It's the same because if you look at, but it's the other way around. We need a webhook from Clay. Does Clay have webhook? Well, that's how we trigger Clay in the first place. So here, and I cannot show this one, or we can add another source. Okay, this one I'm going to deactivate. I just created a webhook that you can call, and now I say relevance. Please send the data to this, and this will land. I'm simplifying because there's other things to take into consideration, but that's the URL that's going to receive the data. That's it. You can integrate relevance in Clay and Clay with relevance just that way. A bit of configuration. We're not going to get into the details today, but that's why, maybe one last thing, this is why every platform we look at, like one of our criteria doesn't have an API, doesn't have webhooks. If you don't have that, we're out, because it just basically means you can trigger that from any other platform. Cool. Thanks, Maxi. Any other questions? This ended up more into an API discussion, but any last questions before we wrap this up? Stop sharing. No? All good? Okay. Then that was the workshop. Thanks for attending. For those of you who want to explore AI agents, don't miss the workshop next week and our special guest, Flo. We're going to show a lot of cool things you can do more on the agentic side. See you around. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.